It's the worst of the CBC for November 22nd, 2019, the show where I watch the CBC so you don't have to. All right, let's get to it. Today, the worst covered story and the biggest omission kind of comes into one, and this can basically be titled either Daniel was right, ha 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 ha, or Quebec, you silly, silly fools, ha 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 ha. Okay, the CN railway strike, the propane, the natural gas. Now, quick shout out to Alberta and most of Saskatchewan. Most of Alberta and Saskatchewan, you are also right because you've been saying the exact same thing as me on this, but I am just going to have to articulate my point on both pipelines and the carbon tax and what the CBC is. They're actually covering something today, but they're not going farther enough. So what they're saying in the CN railway strike is they're saying, okay, Quebec is facing a propane shortage, which is hilarious, because instead of trusting a pipeline to carry natural gas, which would be quicker and could do a higher volume and be less expensive and more environmentally friendly, we have to send it by rail. Now, one of the problems with rail, of being above ground, of it being slower, you can't take as much, is there's also a human element. There are Teamsters, there are unions, because you have to be in a union to move things from point A to point B in this country. So the union is striking because that's what unions do, and they have maximum leverage at this point in between an election because Parliament is in session, and hey, they can leverage it. So Quebec is facing a massive propane shortage. Now, the CBC is saying this, and this is true. And I'm going to just expand on this point a little bit. They're saying that the reason why this is so deadly is it's not just the fact that there's propane shortage, you won't be able to heat your houses, but crops need to be harvested. And in order to harvest crops and then dry grain and get these grains to market, basically in order to create the food we eat in this world, it's all reliant on propane and natural gas. Right? So they came out and said it. Agriculture is fully reliant on natural gas. Now, if you've been watching these for a long time, you know that every time the carbon tax comes up, what do I say? Okay. The biggest problem with the carbon tax is, remember, the carbon tax is magic. It's going to save the environment by disincentivizing people from using carbon, but then we're all going to get rebates and make money off the carbon tax. It's only the big polluters, and they're exempt from the carbon tax. So the big polluters, like Saudi Arabia and massive coal plants, they're all exempt if you're friends with Trudeau. And then the individuals are going to make money off the carbon tax. So what's happening here? Now, here is where the extreme dishonesty of the left comes in. And this is on corporations. Corporations just sound evil. Now, we can talk about, a sort of crony capitalism, corporate capitalism, and all the problems with it. And I'm there with the libertarians in that camp. However, when we talk about corporations, there's many different types of corporations. And most corporations in Canada, most people who incorporate them are small businesses. Small businesses get incorporated. Now, there's another element to this. Remember, Trudeau calls these people tax cheats, right? The small corporations and small businesses. So these are small business owners. But included in that is also doctors, some lawyers, and accountants. But most importantly here, farmers. Okay, farmers are actually individual corporations, and the way we've structured our tax code actually lets farmers, by incorporating, it's a whole complicated thing because all their revenue sort of comes in one massive stream. By letting them incorporate and getting the tax law, it just makes their life a lot easier, and in a modern tax society, sort of streamlines things. We don't have time to get into all that, but what we need to know, though, is they are a corporation. Corporations are evil and must be taxed. So the problem is, if you've seen these carbon tax bills coming out of farmers in Saskatchewan, they're like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and this is not going to be rebated for them. The problem is, raise your hands, play along at home. We're going to play a game called Who Eats Food? Okay? So if you eat food, or you know someone eats food, or you live with people who eat food, raise your hand. Okay, now, if you just won the I Eat Food game, it means when we institute a carbon tax and people growing all the food are paying thousands and thousands of dollars extra per year for carbon, right? Are food costs going to go up? You bet. Because farmers aren't super rich billionaires. Even though they're corporations, right? They're small businesses. They're not these super rich people, right? They're not, Walt Disney, like, rolling up, children's tears inside of, like, money-made cigars. Like, they're farmers. Okay? And these are the people we're hurting. So, quite amazing that they're covering the fact that, you know what? All our farming and our agriculture, the food you eat, if you want to eat plants or vegetables or get meat, if you want to eat food, this is brought to you by natural gas. It's brought to you by fossil fuels. All of it. All of it. It is a vital necessity to today's economy. And now, Quebec's not going to have it. Now, Part of me wants to say, screw Quebec, okay? Let them all no heat for a day. But then they'll all starve, and there'll be massive food shortages, and it will hurt all of Canada. So there's two things here. Like, do we take the long-term hit by just saying, oh, look what happens, and then start an actual conversation around natural gas, energy, the carbon tax, what we really need to do, how silly this all is? Because this could be, the brick that brings down the entire house. Right? Is it short-term pain for long-term gain of getting rid of these shackles on our economy, or do we have to act now to avoid a major economic crash? Right? These are interesting options, but it is so fascinating that they are not able to then connect what is being said. They're covering the answer, but they're not connect. They won't even say. And this is why Alberta says the carbon tax is crazy, and they talk about both these things and they mention it, and then when they go into the next story, it's like they forget what happened in the previous story. It's quite fascinating. Biggest omission of the day, I'll give a quick shout out to the fact that the news is not covering the fact that massive protests at York University against Jews, they are chanting, it's the far left of Islam is chanting Antifada, Antifada, throw the Jews back in the ovens, a reference to the Holocaust. Now they will claim it's not anti-Semitic, they just want to throw Jews in ovens. Interesting case you got there. Fun fact, the same organizations that were protesting at York University, they have targeted my event. So please come to the event, join the Facebook page, go to the events, click going. It's just $5. See you there. And it's also free to anyone who donates to Patreon. And if you are on Patreon and you're coming, just send me a message so I can put you on the guest list. All in all, that will be it for today with a Rosemary Barton scale rating because everything else is pretty boring. We'll give it about a 5 because it was just no news. Oh, there's some Trump stuff in the States. No, 6. We're going to give it a 6 out of 10, the Rosemary Barton scale. So that is it for today. I will see you tomorrow.